I had a fun idea today. And you got to have fun ideas at this time in history. You really, really do. On coming up with casting. So casting for Into the Void, and if Into the Void was a movie, because every now and then I'll see the comment, oh, is this going to be a movie? It's not going to happen. But I did envision that when I was a kid, and the only person I could come up with that I have pictures of that I could say, yep, I could see them playing that role would be, and again, it gets a little bit iffy, is that I could see Jason Priestley being one of the guys, because Jason Priestley's a good actor. I know he's seen as Brandon from 90210 a lot, but he is a good actor, and he's a BC boy as well. So it makes sense if he was either Mike or John. The problem is right now he'd be a little old to play the characters as they are in the books. And then Haley Atwell, I would have. She's of course Agent Carter. She was in the Captain America movie as Agent Peggy Carter, and then she had her own series. And I could see her playing either as Katie or one of the other strong characters that I gave women, which were very, very few and far between in the beginning. I need to put also up here. So originally, when I wrote these books back in the 80s, so way, way, way back, they were quite different than what they are right now. I had to do an update. When I decided to come back and do them again, I decided I have to do an update. Now, Mike, who was known, honestly, when I wrote the books originally, he was General. That was his name. General. I didn't give him a name until I'd already written like little short stories. I'm like, this General guy's got to have a name. And Mike, I guess. And Transload worked for me because I thought, it's sort of an old rule with Star Wars that they were smart with, where it would sound different but it sounds still like a normal name. So, transport, and either low transport or transport that's slow, whatever it is, it's some kind of a combination of those words, and Transload worked. And I thought, yeah, that sounds alien-ish, but it still is something that people can pronounce. And then I forgot about that with the rest of it. Now, Sabal was the leader for Altil. And in the beginning, when I first wrote, he was just called the Altilian Commander. Again, he didn't have a name. He just had General and the Altilian Commander. And then I thought, well, I got to have a name for him. So I gave him Sabal as the name. And so the initial fight was between Altil and Folteres, and it was just a war. And it went on for quite a while, like through 3 books or something like that. And the first book was called Empires Collide. And it was Folteres having a war with Altil after many, many years of buildup. And then along the way, they go to Earth and they pick up these guys. So there's the Webster brothers, and yeah, there was 8 of them. So when you're reading these books now and you're like, he's got 4 brothers? Yeah, there used to be 8. So I had to eliminate some. He had Johnny, Jack, Jimmy, Don, Mark, Rob, Steve, Rich. Forgot to put Mark under Don, because that was how I did it. Johnny, Jack, Jimmy, Don, Mark, Rob, Steve, Rich. There was 8 of them. And writing lines for all of them, good luck. Because I used to write them in a style of a script. So the way I used to write my books was as a script. So that was kind of how that worked. And honestly, I don't mind the idea of writing them as a screenplay from here on. That if I'm going to do, if I ever do go back into the realm of writing books, it might be easier to do it as a screenplay where it's just dialogue. And then, it's up to the reader to figure it out. And then if I ever did actually get money for a movie, which right now I might be pretty good at getting a bank loan for something, because right now interest rates are really low. I don't know. So I'm the hockey guy. I do hockey videos on YouTube. Can I have money for a movie? A movie about what? Stars and battles and stuff, just not Star Wars because copyrights, but something along those lines. How much money do you have? None. I got zip. Can you guys give me how does $5 million sound? Because I think that sounds like a pretty good movie. And then get out. Security dragged me out by my feet. Now, what's interesting is you'll notice over here. So, currently, you have Geyer and you have Gora. They used to be Gord and Gora. But because I had an H in there, everybody said, who's Gohord? And I'm like, who's Gohora? Oh, come on. If you have the word ghost, do you say Gahost? No. Why are you doing that? And so I got tired of explaining it, so the names changed to Geyer and Gora. Because if I take the H out, then it's just Gordon. So I'm like, well, I can't make the evil alien. It's Gordon. No, I can't do that. So it had to be a different spelling. And then when the name changed to drop the H, I had to make it Guy or Angora. And then people stopped mispronouncing it. But it was a hassle. It just drove me completely insane. Because I would let friends of mine read my books when I was writing them in school. I wrote them out longhand. So I actually wrote 161 pages was Empires Collide longhand. So writing it, and I'm talking like handwriting, yeah, cursive right here. And so for people, once they were able to get past the chicken scratch and read it, they'd be mispronouncing these names. And this one here, so right now, if you're reading Into the Void, you'll see Dradston. Well, it's pronounced exactly the same as this. But again, people looked at that and went, who's Dradgadon? What does Dradgadon mean? And it's like, the idea I was trying to do here was the idea of it needs to sound alien, but it needs to look somebody alien, but it still sounds like that could be somebody's name. So I changed it to Dradston. And I did it completely phonetic because I knew if I made it with an O, people like, oh, Drajdon. No, knock it off. Holy crap. Do we say dragon? No, we say dragon. It's just why. And so it's just Dradston. I was like, that's kind of cool. And he was an alien. And initially, he had red skin. Now he's blue. So I changed his color too when he changed over. Sharius Laris, who I haven't got to yet in my readings. So in the book I'm reading right now, Talia Laris is the leader of Falteres. Originally, in the original books, Sharius Laris took over this planet from Dradston. So Dradston got old and he stepped down, and Sharius Laris was his replacement. And she was human, which threw the whole thing out of whack because that planet wasn't made up mostly of humans. But Dradston assured her, you'll be really good at your job. She got really drunk. She tried to make a pass at him. It got awkward. And he snuck out when she passed out. And that was one of my favorite scenes to write ever, was she's being all sexy. And he's like, how do I get out of here? So Dradston as a character has always been kind of just a really nice, down-to-earth guy. And just really kind of awkward and to himself. And so I thought that was important when I was rewriting him to make sure that I spelled his name in a way that people wouldn't be mispronouncing it. It drove me insane. And make sure that he kept those characteristics. The change, of course, is he's not that much older than Sharius Laris, and Sharius Laris would come over and take over Earth. In the original books, Earth's not important. Earth is nowhere near important. It's all about Falteres, Temp. Temp was just a peaceful world, kind of like, think about a planet of Switzerland. That was Temp. Temp didn't become an important part of the book at all. At one point, I think I had Mike and his forces hide behind Temp while Altel was coming through to try to take Earth. And then they kind of ducked in behind him and took him out from behind, which is, sneak attack. But that was as close to having Temp as any kind of a part of anything. And of course, this is before I had wormholes and you just skipped around the universe. This was with the idea of you travel from one to the next, which took some time. And I actually made it so it took some time. You didn't just, all right, so we're leaving. Oh, look, we're here. I hate that with sci-fi movies now. It's just, you're taking out the journey. You're taking out part of what makes it work. So I take it out through the wormhole, but, at least I'm not lying about it or making it ridiculous. Now, Manson was the name of the planet that was run by Dradston. Now, of course, Manson is and I had an extra S in there, and eventually I went, nah. I even tried at one point changing it to Marsonia, and I thought that sounds really stupid. Almost sounded like Apollonia's not very well-known cousin, so I thought, no, I'm not going with Marsonia. So I took Dradston and just put him on Altair. Now you'll notice you've got Falteres, Temp, and Manson, and this was the Galactic Federation. The Galactic Federation was made up of a lot of planets. And when I was about 12 years of age, I had a book sort of similar to the ones I make notes on my hockey channel. And I would actually make flags. So one of the things that was important, I was like, I have to make flags for these planets. So I made flags for all the planets, including the bad guys. And these were the three bad guys: Altil, Altair, and Asterain. Asterain completely taken out of the new books. Because I'm like, I've got to simplify this. I'm pretty sure I didn't put them in at all. Didn't mention them. Altil and Altair, on the other hand, Altair, I made them The good guys in the new one. Temp isn't even really a part of it. Manson doesn't exist, and it's basically just the Altilians are evil. Altair was kind of like the Romulans, for lack of a better way of putting it. Like they weren't as overtly evil as the Altilians, who would have been like sort of the Klingons, the Galactic Empire, the Klingon Empire, that whole idea there. But Altair, they were just sort of the skeezy, what's in it for us kind of guys, Ferengi almost kind of sort of thing. So this was the original, and now it's just Altil. Basically, it's just dealing with these guys throughout the first trilogy. Now, mentioned in the books that I've written now, Conley. Conley originally was in the Andromeda Galaxy. It was not in the Milky Way at all. Conley was my way of creating brand new characters and a brand new setting and a brand new villain. The villain being Bandok. Now, on Conley, you had, what was the name of the first? I know it was Roberts. Was it Sean Roberts? Which is the name of an actor now. I'm trying to think. I know because over here, Bandok was run by Pete Roberts, who had changed his name to Tyrant, which sounds like Tyrant. That's on purpose. It's a very Star Wars thing to do to make it sound like what it is, right? General Grievous. General Grievance. So, Tyrant sounds like Tyrant. That makes sense. But I'm trying to think now. I want to say Sean. I think it was. I think it was Sean Roberts was the leader of Conley. And his brother was very jealous of the fact that Sean was always preferred by their parents, and he wanted to prove he could be just as good. So he went to Bandok, which was an evil world, and took over. Which I'm trying to think of the in Battlestar Galactica. Same kind of idea, right? Where the bad guy is run by somebody who used to be a good guy. I'm talking about the 1970s Battlestar Galactica. So Sean Roberts was the commander, and Pete Roberts became Tyrant. And I didn't reveal that they were brothers until later. So later, when Tyrant and Sean are face to face, he's like, Pete, and he's like, yeah, it's me. Haha. You thought I'd be nothing. And he's like, I never said you'd be nothing. That was our parents that favored me over you, not me. I loved you. You were my brother. I assumed you were dead. So there were storylines in this that I introduced, and then eventually in comes General. Because what happens is that they create the Peace Restorer, which is the big ship. The Peace Restorer, which was actually in the original books, was there to kind of, okay, we've been fighting at war for a long time. We're going to create the ultimate warship. Absolutely huge. The original Peace Restorer was huge. And so the idea was this massive warship, which also had some pretty good stealth to it, because of course it did, because that's what's important in sci-fi, right? And so it was capable of tremendous movement through interstellar distances, and eventually General Mike would decide, hey, we're going to go through to another galaxy. So he jumps into the Andromeda Galaxy, ends up right next to Bandok. Whoops. Realizes there's a population down there of advanced beings, and he sees they have a capability of spaceflight, and he's like, hey, I should hail them, and we can be friends. And Bandok opens fire and cripples the Peace Restorer to the point where they have to hide and try to refit it and try to fix it, and they end up running across people from Conley, and then it ends up becoming a uniting of these guys and these guys against these guys. And this is after what happened with Altil. Now, before General General, I'll just go with General, takes his people, which included all of these brothers, all of them. Eventually I started killing them off because there's just too many. And not Johnny, Jack, or Jimmy, though. Those were the three. The three J's were the main ones, and they stayed together. Now, you'll notice in the new books, Jack's not in there, because Jack and John are basically the same name. So I went, yeah, I'll have Johnny. John's still in there. It was Johnny. Johnny, Jimmy, Steve, and Rob. And Steve and Rich. Sorry. No, it's Rob. It's Rob. It's Rich that I ditched. And Mark, I think, was the one I killed off first, and I think I killed off Don second. But before this war is won with Altil, it eventually gets to the point where Altilians are just, well, they're jerks. And that's right, too. The planet that they ran, so I need to explain this too, originally was called Gorn. I know. If you're a Star Trek aficionado, you're like, Gorn? Really? Yeah, see, I wanted it all to kind of work together. And as a little kid, I didn't know what a Gorn was. I didn't realize that was already a Star Trek terminology. So when I started rewriting them, I went, I got to combine Gorn and Altil and make it one world and combine all this together. But initially, General, because he got so frustrated with the amount of attrition that was going on and just the amount of troops being lost, and it was on both sides, and eventually they nuked the planet. They destroyed most of Altil to end the war. And the war, of course, ends. But what happened after that was Sabal became a sympathetic character where his people, most of his people were dead. The radiation on the planet meant that he couldn't return. He was in orbit at the time and watched it happen. So where other sci-fi would kind of make him a twisted and evil, I'm going to get revenge guy, I instead had Sabal realize, holy crap, what have I done? What have I done to my people? And so instead, he ends up discussing things with Mike at one point, and Mike, obviously being human, realizes that was an overreaction. So the nuclear destruction of Altil is something that I deal with in the trilogy that I wrote now, and this is kind of the alternate timeline. I decided, you know what? I'm going to have this be an alternate timeline where this stuff happens. General's wife, Katie, she was not in the books originally. And then I brought her in later, and what had happened was that the Mike is stationed on a remote planet, which was Pluto, of all places. And they had a station there because strategically it worked, and Earth was useless, so they didn't care about having one near Earth, because Earth's not going to care. They're not even going to notice it. But Altil found out about this base, and so they went to shut it down. They're like, you can't be watching our shipments, you can't be watching our movements, we're going to go and blow this thing up. And General at the time was a colonel. He hadn't been promoted to general level yet. So they had a battle where they were severely outgunned, severely outmanned, and they survive. So because he's able to keep most of his troops alive by fooling the Altilians into thinking that they're out of weapons and that, you know, we have to, and then brings them in close enough that they could just hit them with everything they have just to make them go away for a while. In the midst of all that battle, their settlement, and his wife was there. He believed that she had been kidnapped by the Altilians as they came through the village. And what actually happened was she had been taken by this guy. So Gord had actually taken her, and he had blamed Sabal. For many, many years, he had blamed Sabal. Absolute hatred for Sabal and for the Altilians, when in reality, it was Gorn that had taken his wife. It was them that they had held on to her for this long. And when he found out, things got ugly, and right, and then, you know, he realized his mistake, and this all sort of unfolded from there. So she came back. He finds her, and she's back in his life. And there were some speed bumps along the way because obviously she'd been in prison for a long time, and he thought she was dead. So there was some awkwardness there. He never was with any other woman. He couldn't imagine being with another woman. She could never compare to her. So he was never with anybody else romantically. John settled down and had kids with Catherine. I'm trying to think of the others as well. I did not write particularly strong female characters until Sharias Laris. Sharias Laris was the first female character that I had that was a commander, and that it felt like she was a legit strong character all on of her own. Other than that, they were mostly wives and girlfriends. I was a 12-year-old kid, so I can be provided a little bit of slack on that one. But it was basically a bunch of dudes, for the most part, fighting it out. And since they're all fighting it out for the control of the galaxy, it makes sense. Gord's wife. You know, this is kind of funny. And I swear by all that's holy, her name was Melania. And he picked her out of a line. He basically had a line of females, and whichever one he found most pleasing would be his wife. and he took her to be his wife, and that was Melania. Now, Melania was the mother to Gora. She was not a fan of Gord, so she tried to raise him to be better. So as an adult, when he is being a complete and total totalitarian, she tries to rein him in, and he kills his own mother. And that was a big moment where I was like, okay, so I can't save Gora now because he just killed his mom. There's a line that you go past it, and then it's done. Yeah. It was a universe that spawned. I want to say there were 9 different books that I wrote. Again, all longhand. Yeah, I wrote them all longhand. Oh no, I think it was 7 or 8. I know I would write like one a year, where I would sit down with paper and pen and I go, okay, it's time to write another Distant Battles book, because that's what it was called, was Distant Battles, and I would sit down and write it, and I would put people that I knew in it, and that was part of the inspiration. Was I would meet new people every year. I met new people. I'm a teenager. I'm going to summer camp. I'm going back to school. Every year there'd be new people, and I go, that person would make a really good character. And then I would throw them in the book. And sometimes they didn't make a good character and they wouldn't last very long, or I wouldn't even bother putting them in. They'd ask. There were times people were like, can I be in your book? And I'd be like, it's already kind of full. So, and you don't want to tell somebody, you make a terrible character. So, one thing with all the downtime that we have, and when I say downtime, I mean I'm working more than I did when the hockey season was on. I am working more. For less money, too, so it's a really good benefit. But there have been times where I've thought, I could get back into writing this again. But if I did it, I'd probably just reboot the whole thing all over again. I have to be honest. When I look back at the books I wrote, and I wrote 5 of them, and the 5th one I think I'm most proud of, which is Violation. The reality is that the story it's completely different. I would think if I was writing it now than it would have been 10 years ago. So I would have to go through and just reboot the whole thing. And just say, no, what, I'm going to start this all over again. I don't think I would have the arcologies over Earth, all of that stuff. I don't even know if Earth would factor into it very much. I think I would go back to probably something like this. Not 8 brothers. 8 brothers is ridiculous. Don't have 8 brothers. And Marianne, their mother, she was crazy. In the original, she was completely crazy. And at one point, the boys had to actually have to deal with their mother. Their mother was dealing with some supernatural forces beyond her own control. Oh yeah, there was supernatural stuff in those books too, and it sadly ended with the death of their own mother. So it got pretty dark in that book, but it was kind of fun too. And then one thing about that was, I remember too, I had for Jack, his girlfriend coming out of that book was Corianne. That was the name of a girl that worked at a video store down the street from me. And one of the greatest sadnesses I had as a teenager was, I really liked her. And her and I would talk for hours. I'd go in the video store to rent a movie at 5 o'clock. I'd still be talking to her at 7. And we just got along really, really well. And I put her in the book. She read the first one, the longhand. She thought it was great. She was like, oh, this is really good. So I wrote her into the second. I was like, man, she's going to be really impressed. And I wrote her into the second one. And she was this really strong female character. So I take it back. Shirai Solaris wasn't the first one. She was a really strong female character. I was like, man, I'm going to give this to her and I'm going to ask her out. And so I went to the store with the book, and she had just quit the week before. And I was like, oh. So yeah, I never saw Corianne again. I had no idea where she went. I didn't even know technically how to spell her name. So it's one of those things. So if you're a teenager watching this and you're like, there's this girl at BK or this girl at McDonald's, I'm going to ask her out someday. Don't wait, because you'll go in and you'll get your confidence. I was a giant nerd. I had to laugh watching. There was a Ninja Sex Party video I watched last night where he said, you're awesome on the inside and you're going through this awkward phase from age 12 to 29. Yeah, so that was me. I was awkward from about age 12. It was about 20. Yeah, 29 works. But don't hold off. Don't say, I want to ask that girl, but she's, I don't know. I really wish that 15-year-old me had a little more guts and a little bit less fear and had just asked the girl out. Because odds are, if she read my entire book of Chicken Scratch and she could remember all the characters and what was going on and keep this straight and the 8 brothers, she probably liked me. So yeah, it's one of those things. She was, I think she was 3 years older than I was, something along those lines. But when you're 15 and the girl's 18, you're kind of like, this is kind of, at my school I'm a giant nerd, but here you don't know that, so we can continue to chat and have chats and talk. All right, there you go. A little bit about me, a little bit about the books. I thought this would be a fun thing to do today. Thank you guys so much for all your support. And it's a kind of a behind the scenes look at the books that I'm going to throw on the Entertainment Guy channel at a time where we could all use escapes, which is why I love writing my books, because life wasn't great for me as a teenager. Life kind of sucked. And my books could give me that break. I could lock myself in my room, put a record on or a cassette, depending on what year we're talking about here, and just write. And usually what I put on with records was the Star Wars soundtracks. I had Return of the Jedi, and there was another one I had as well. I want to say Star Wars, but I know, for instance, I had Return of the Jedi. There was a double album, and I played it so much that it skipped and cracked and sputtered, and that was the good times. All right, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. The channel just passed 12,300 on this little channel here, so thank you guys so much for helping it gain some attention. And honestly, numbers wise, this channel had the best month it's ever had in March. So with not having hockey to cover, I've been spending more time on this, and it has helped. So this is sort of helping to prop things up at least a little bit during this downtime. We'll get through this. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video, especially if you happened upon it from the hockey channel. Hi, welcome. And I will talk to you guys again soon.